2022 is almost at an end, Sainers. We're in the home stretch of December. A couple of weeks to go. And I've just been sitting here, as I do, sipping on a nice Pinot, thinking, what are the highs and lows of 2022 for St Kilda? It is a very hard question because there were quite a few highs early on, distant memories now, and there were quite a few lows more recently, as we know. And I've tweeted it out, so I've got a lot of suggestions from Sainers as well, because these are just obviously all opinion-based. Everyone's going to have different highlights. Everyone is going to have different lowlights. So I'm happy to talk about my highs and lows, but also thank you to everyone that responded to the tweets and gave me some suggestions on kind of what they thought caught their eye and what upset them the most about 2022. This one's from Jack on Twitter. He said his highlight was Jack Hayes and Lenny Hayes, just Hayes, both of them. And lowlight was Essendon, the Essendon loss, and that was a 35-point loss. And yeah, that'd be right up there in terms of lowlights for me as well. You know, Spud's game, most importantly, going with an Essendon fan as well. A mate from Geelong who I don't get to go to the football with often, but somehow every time we go, the Bombers seem to beat St Kilda, which is bloody annoying. The fact that we kicked 7 goals straight, I think, in that third to break even or hit the front, and then we allowed Essendon to kick 6 or 7 goals in a row without reply, and then they walk out 35-point winners. So definitely agree there. And he also mentions going 2-8 after the bye, after going 8-3 before the bye. So totally agree there, and I'm tipping a few more people agree with you there as well, mate. This one's from Eurodez. Highlight, showing such promise from 3 draftees in their first year. Exactly. Owens, Winhager, and Nasiah. All of them. I think they got combined 42 games into them, which is great. A lot of experience. Lowlight, the absolute inevitable decline in performance and effort post-bye. Yeah, for some reason, a lot of people say inevitable, but for me, it was kind of like, nah, it doesn't have to happen. Why? Why us? And that's why, the midway mark, Kane Corn said out of everyone in the top 4, top 8, we would be the team to crash and burn. And we were showing no signs of doing that at any point. And I got upset. So I tweeted at him. Obviously, that's backfired. And I don't learn my lesson. I go for him because I can't stand every time, St Kilda's looking half decent. He has to talk shit about them. But he's been right so far, so I give him credit there. Martin Brown has said his highlight was the Nasiah Wanganeen-Malera 40-metre bullet to King in the pocket. I believe that was in round 12 or round 13. It would have been round 11, actually. This is to go 8-3, and it was against North Melbourne. And it was just a beautiful pass. I was on the other side of the ground, and you could hear the bullet. Bang! When it hit his boot, the leather, you could hear it. And it hit King, and I think King kicked a nice goal from a tight angle to top it off from there. So, yeah, that was, to me, pass of the year. If they had awards for that, that would have been it. It was low, hard, and no one was getting near it. It favoured the forward perfectly. Pass of the year, absolutely, from Nasiah Wanganeen-Malera. Low light, again, dropping off after the bye. Totally agree with you there. Someone's also posted their highlight, which is just King taking marks. In particular, the one against Brisbane late in the third, and when we were on a bit of a roll, bit of momentum, and he took it just outside the goal square, huge clunk mark. Brad's low light, and I don't know, I've tried to erase this game from my memory. Cairns against Port. Robbie Gray kicks a point in the last 40 seconds and we lose. I honestly think that probably, in terms of when I think back on how I was feeling when that happened, I don't think I've been more upset after a loss this year. I think that was probably the most disappointing loss, the most heart-wrenching, the most frustrating loss out of any loss that we had this year. If I think about it, there were a lot of losses here, but we played good teams and that was it. But that was the one where it's like, bloody hell, are you kidding me? How the hell did we lose that? Simon reckons that his highlight is Winhager and Owens, the 2 youngsters. Low light, Cairns and dropping away too easily. G_Winhager, someone's a big fan of Winhager. Highlight, getting 42 games out of our 3 draftees and the Geelong win. And low light, Essendon. Seems Essendon's really been the favourable low light so far for everyone. And obviously for all of you watching at home, feel free to put in the comments your highlight and your low light of the season as well. Now, in terms of my highlight and low light, my highlight, well, highlights, we don't have to name just one, but my highlight's probably the response after the first loss of the season when we go on a 5-game winning streak. It just felt different. Like, we haven't done that in years. I think prior to that, it was under Richo in 2017, and we won, I think, 3 or 4 in a row, and this was 5, so it felt different, and it should have been 6. The Port game ruined it, so that counts as a low light. Highlight goes into a low light, Port, and the Essendon loss. And on top of that, my other highlight, when I think about it, it's probably the Geelong win. As you guys know, I really don't like Geelong. So anytime we get some points over them, which is not often, that is absolutely game of the year for me. That win, the feeling at Marvel when we got on a roll in the third term. Mason Wood roves, runs onto his left and kicks another one. And you're like, what the hell's going on? And what's even better is on the replay, you can hear Huddo. Anthony Hudson, an avid Geelong supporter, just gradually getting less and less excited about the game and calling the game because it was all about St Kilda in the second half. So that topped it off. The other highlight for me was travelling to Adelaide and watching Saints and the Crows at Adelaide Oval. Being in the cheer squad for that game was unbelievable, particularly that fourth term where we got in that roll. And just to see Max King kick 6 straight, a few of those marks that he took as well, right in front of me in the goal square, were beautiful. We're flying away from home, hostile environment. I've been away to Adelaide a few times with no success, so that's absolutely a highlight for me. Another low light, just to balance it out, the Bulldogs game. The Bulldogs game where we went down, we only went down by 28 points, but it was the first 90 minutes of that game where it was absolutely dreadful and probably the worst football that I've ever seen a St Kilda team play at Marvel. The last 2 times we played the Dogs at Marvel, we've lost by 111, and this one felt basically the same way, except we kicked a few junk time goals later and the scoreboard looked a bit nicer, which it wasn't. It didn't look like a footy team at all. We looked like we were just a bunch of randoms off the street that had been thrown onto Marvel Stadium to play the Bulldogs. That's how bad it was. And I remember sitting with Joyce in the stands, just laughing like, I can't believe how bad we are. This is a joke. Like, it was so funny watching it because it was so bad. I got to stop myself. I'm getting a bit of a headache talking about that game. I think obviously we've got to mention Jack Sinclair as another highlight, winning the Trevor Barker medal and obviously making an All-Australian team, our only All-Australian for this season. So absolutely, he's going to be a highlight for me as well. And then we can go through a list of players that have played really well as highlights, but that's not really the point of the video. The video is kind of more the moments, I guess, that got you out of your seat or got you really proud as a Sainer, and then obviously the moments on the flip side that really pissed you off, got you swearing at the TV, yelling at the umps at the ground, that sort of stuff as well. So that, I think, is kind of my highlights and lowlights. When I think highlight, I think Geelong win. And when I close my eyes and I think low light, I think the Bulldogs, Port Adelaide losses, and Essendon. That's it. Those are really where it stems for me. And that summarises our season. We can beat some really good teams, and then we cough it up against teams we should have beaten anyway. And then obviously we can't forget a low light in obviously the way the season ended. And then from there, what happened with Brett Ratton and the whole changes. That to me is a bit of a low light, just the way it happened, not being able to, kind of, I guess, get a message across to Rats and wish him all the best and him to us. And obviously the pursuit of Ross Lyon, which I think is going to eventually turn into a highlight. If anything, it's a highlight because we got Lenny back, we got Goddard, we got all these guys back, Robert Harvey. That's a highlight as well, getting the old crew back. But the low light is obviously the collateral damage and what happened to get to that point. That's kind of the video saying as highlights, lowlights. If we've missed anything, obviously there's millions of things that we could think of for highlights and lowlights. Saners have shared their thoughts on Twitter. I've given my highlights and lowlights, though I know I've forgotten something really obvious and someone's going to comment and make me feel really stupid. So if I have forgotten something, obviously I can't list everything. Just give me your highlights and your lowlights from the season, and we'll have a discussion in the comments. So I'll leave it there, Saners. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you have a wonderful weekend. I think this will drop on the Friday. So I'll see you next week for Saints TV Weekly, and then plenty more leading up until the end of the year. Take care, Saners. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, go you mighty Saners. See you guys.